StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day, to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is, we are continuing on our process here of our ongoing series of how winners think. If you have not caught the first 3 entries into this series, make sure you go back to the previous 3 episodes and catch them. And then we're picking up on part 4 here today. Before we get started, I'll remind you all of 2 things. First of all, my daily motivation and Monday motivation messages guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point. Start your day, your week, respectively. All you got to do to get those is be a member of my texting community. It is free to join. And once we start sending those messages out again, you'll be getting them straight to your phone. Text me at the number 305-384-6894 to be a member of my community. And once we reactivate, you'll be getting those messages. Secondly, Work On Your Game University. If you would like to have me as your direct coach, all you got to do is be a member of the university. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can see the backgrounds, the stories, and feedback from people who we are currently working with, have worked with in the past, and you can be the person who we work with next. Just go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Link down below in the description. That out the way, let's pick up right where we left off, which is picking up on point number 10 of this series, which is how winners think. Number 10, unwanted circumstances and outcomes are used as springboards for my future success, or successes. Unwanted circumstances and unwanted outcomes are used as springboards for future successes. When you're a winner, every single thing that happens to you, the winner finds a way to transmute that energy into something positive that they will use for future positive outcomes. Anything that happens to a winner, they find a way to use it positively to achieve future success. 50 Cent said in his book, The 50th Law, that he co-authored with Robert Greene, he said, every thing that happens to me, I find a way to turn it positive. So every negative thing that happens to me, I turn it positive. Therefore, there's nothing you can do that actually hurts me, because I will always turn it into something that I want. He turns every situation into what he wants. So Robert Greene, he calls this alchemy. All right, this is a chemist. It's a chemical process of taking any energy and turning it into something else. All right, and Napoleon Hill called it transmutation. There, in this context, we can use them in similar ways. Even setbacks, when you're talking to a winner, are used as future success springboards. Any of you who's ever heard the story of a person who is generally recognized as a success or as a winner can tell you stories of things not going the way that they wanted them to go, and how they were able to bounce back from that situation and turn it into success. Isn't this the success story of Dan? Anyone who's known is they have this story of things were going one way, then they stopped working, and then I started making them go another way, and now here I am, a success. Look at me. All right, many people who you know as winners created some of their greatest successes after suffering setbacks, or just the fact that they suffered a setback and then they came back anyway makes you admire them, just the fact that they came back and they didn't just stay laying down when they were losing, or at least when it appeared they were losing. Athletes, for example, will lose a game or have an injury rather, that makes it seem like, well, they'll never be able to perform at that level again. And then when they come back and they're able to perform, it's a big deal. I remember there was an NFL quarterback by the name of Dante Culpepper. He played for a couple NFL teams. I believe he was on the Minnesota Vikings. That was probably when he had some of his best years. And then I believe he played for the Miami Dolphins and maybe the LA Raiders, if I'm correct. I know he played for at least one of those teams, because there was a point where Culpepper had gotten, his knee had gotten injured. Might have been a torn ACL, but his knee got messed up. And then he was playing either for the Dolphins or the Raiders. I don't remember which team he was playing for. And in a particular game, might have been both of the teams he was playing for. And in a particular game, he was playing on the road against the team he had previously played for, and he scored a couple of touchdowns, running touchdowns, where he would run the ball into the end zone and score. And I remember after he scored his touchdowns, he would look at some of the fans who were sitting near the end zone and I guess shouting stuff at him, and he would smile at them and he would point at his knee, and he was kind of just letting them know, hey, yeah, I thought I was done because my knee got hurt, but now look at me scoring touchdowns against your team to this very day. The point being, he was using the failure of that knee injury as a springboard for his retaliation and get back against those fans, because now here he is scoring touchdowns with that same knee that had previously been injured. Business people lose businesses, go bankrupt, or otherwise publicly chastised and ridiculed they find a way to come back. A politician goes through an election, loses the election, or they go through some type of life challenge and they find a way back and they become successful. Lyndon Baines Johnson, a famous president in the United States who succeeded John F. Kennedy after President Kennedy was assassinated. Lyndon Baines Johnson, when he first got into politics, I believe he was coming out of the state of Texas. When his first foray into politics, he lost the first election he tried to win. He was running for something local on the state level, but he continued to work on his game and became this tireless campaigner. And he was eventually able to work his way into federal politics, DC politics, as we call them now. Eventually, he got chosen as the vice president towards John F. Kennedy. And when Kennedy was assassinated, he became the president himself, Mr. Johnson. The point is, he faced a setback to start his career, but then ended up winning even more moving forward. There's a boxer by the name of Bernard Hopkins. And if I remember the story correctly, the very first pro fight Bernard Hopkins got into, he actually lost his first fight, but then he had a streak of, for years, didn't get beat. And he ended up becoming a champion boxer and fought well into his, I believe he was well into his 50s. He was still fighting and winning boxing matches because he just found this inside of him, some determination inside of him to stay in great shape and become a great fighter. The point being here, folks, people who are known as successes and whose stories we celebrate often have faced setbacks. And one of the reasons that we celebrate them is because they face a setback. As we talked about earlier in the series, you can't be a champion only winning easy games. All right, you got to face some hard ones. You got to face some ones that look like you're not going to win, and you got to win. We don't respect or look up to anyone who has never faced such a situation. Think about it. Is this true? We do not respect anyone who's never faced a situation that look like they can't possibly win, and they figured out a way to win. If someone's life is every time it looks like an easy win, they win, and every time it looks like a guaranteed loss, they lose, well, there's nothing interesting about that person because that's how most people live. What makes a person interesting is that you take a situation that almost everyone else will say, well, this is a loss, and you figure out a way to make it into a win. That's what makes you interesting in the first place, the fact that you did that. So all successful people have faced this. The most successful winners do their best work when they are coming back from what looked like an ending of their whole story. Like, all right, it's pretty much over for this person. They came back and they found a way to win. One of the reasons that whenever I do interviews, or even when I lay out my bio, when I'm doing speaking or something like that, is always what always gets mentioned and noticed by people, not even mentioned by me, but people notice it when I do interviews. I was recording on my guy Joel Goldberg's show earlier here today. His show is called Rounding the Bases. He's actually the play-by-play, one of the play-by-play broadcasters for the Kansas City Royals. At least he is as of today. But he also does a lot of professional speaking on his own. And the day that we recorded was like right after the baseball regular season ended. And he noted while we were doing our conversation for his show, like, tell the story of how you were able to get into pro basketball coming from where you came from. Because Joel knows the sports world pretty well, being that he's plugged in and traveling with a pro baseball team 6 months out of the year. And one of the reasons that story resonates with people so much is not necessarily because people understand what it's like to be a Division III basketball player and going to becoming a pro basketball player overseas. Most people know very little about Division III basketball or overseas basketball. But the reason it's interesting is because coming out of a Division III college, when you understand what that is, and then becoming a professional athlete, which everybody understands what it is in a general sense, that's a very interesting kind of rags to riches type of story. So people resonate with that, not because they care so much about sports, but about the fact that most people look at that situation and say, there's no way you can win. And then this guy figured out a way to win. That's interesting. All right. That makes me interesting. Just the fact that that's my story. So the most successful winners have these in their lives. Any winner you know of, any successful person you know of has a situation like that where it looked like there's no way. And then they figured out a way. All right, period. So you need that. You're going to be a winner. Point number 11. Today's topic, once again, is the mindset of winners, how winners think. Number 11, while I cannot always control outcomes, I can and do control my process of execution. This is the mindset of the winner. I cannot always control outcomes, but I can control the process that I follow towards influencing that outcome. You cannot always control whether you win or lose, but you can control if you're prepared and you do the best job you possibly could do with the goal of winning. You often hear me say that we are in a results-based business. Challenge with that of being in a results-based business is we don't always control the results. We don't always control the outcomes because outcomes often involve multiple elements that we do not have direct control over or even access to. But what we can fully control is our process and how we execute our process. That we can control. So if you run a food service business, for example, you can't control exactly how much money you make every night because you can't always control how many people show up, even though you can control maybe how many people you invite what your expectations are, but you can make sure that your process is clean enough that you have enough supplies, enough staff, enough food that every customer who does show up gets handled the right way, and that you maximize on your opportunity for revenue. You can make sure you control your marketing process so that you're getting the word out to enough people that you have more than enough who are showing up and wanting to come eat at your place. You can control that. You control that every customer gets a great experience so that if they make a decision to come back, they have no reason not to come back. An athlete, for example, can't fully control the outcome of the game, but you can make sure that you and your team are fully prepared for the game so that nothing happens during the game that you weren't prepared for and weren't ready for up front. You can make sure there's actually a game plan to be executed on. So again, you can't control the outcomes, but you can control the process. I'll give you an example. Pat Riley. Many of you know who Pat is. He is a former professional basketball coach. He was actually a player back in the day as well. A lot of people don't know that he was a player. Then he became a broadcaster, first playing and then a broadcaster for the Los Angeles Lakers. He was actually a player also on the University of Kentucky basketball team way back in the day. He became a broadcaster for the LA Lakers, and then he became an assistant coach and then eventually a head coach of the LA Lakers. He was the coach of the Lakers during their heyday in the 1980s when they won 5 championships. He wasn't the coach for all of them, but he was the coach for many of them. He coached a guy named Magic Johnson, another guy named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Then he got out of coaching in LA, and he went and coached the New York Knicks for several years when the Knicks were a contender, never won a championship, but were a solid contender for several years in the early 90s. And then in the late 90s, he jumped ship and became a basketball coach down here in Miami for the Miami Heat, where he did win a championship in 2000. And the Heat were contenders for several years, didn't win a championship, but they did win a championship in 2006 behind a guy named Dwayne Wade and another guy on the tail end of his career named Shaquille O'Neal. And now, last I heard, Pat Riley was an executive with the Miami Heat, still is. He's an executive in the front office, not coaching anymore. But one of the things that Pat Riley did back in the late 80s with the LA Lakers, the Lakers were a very dominant basketball team. They had been going back and forth with the Boston Celtics throughout the 80s, the decade of 1980s. If you follow basketball, the Lakers and the Celtics dominated that. They dominated that decade. So it was the Lakers won the championship in 1980. The Celtics won in 81. I believe it was the Sixers in 19. No, it was the Lakers again in 1982. The Sixers won in 1983. Celtics won in 84. The Lakers won in 85. The Celtics won in 86. And the Lakers won 87 and 88. Then the Detroit Pistons finally snatched the throne from those two teams. And the Detroit Pistons won 89 and 90. And then Michael Jordan took over from there. And in 1985, the Lakers won the championship. 1986, it was expected because the Celtics won in 84, beating the Lakers. The Lakers won in 85, beating the Celtics. So 1986 was supposed to be the rubber match. Okay, so the Celtics won once, Lakers won once. It was supposed to be the Lakers against the Celtics again in 1986. But the problem is the Lakers got upset in the playoffs that year and lost to the Houston Rockets. And the Rockets went to the NBA Finals to play against the Celtics, and the Celtics beat the Rockets instead of beating the Lakers. And Pat Riley and many of the Lakers, players and fans and people around them were very disappointed that the Lakers failed to make it to the final round in that 1986 series. And Pat Riley decided he needed to do something about this. Okay, I want you to catch that part right there. They didn't make it to the championship round, and he decided he needed to do something about it. So what did you notice just in that point alone? First of all, that there was a standard that they made it to the championship round. There was a standard that if we don't make it to the championship round, there's a problem. How many teams in sports these days think like that? We didn't make it to the championship round. Not even that they didn't win. We didn't make it to the championship round. That's a problem that we need to fix. How many teams these days come up short and make it to the championship round and they don't even see that as a problem? He saw it as a problem. We need to fix this because we're supposed to be in the championship round every year. That was the mentality of Pat Riley. So, and the organization too, because the whole organization needs to be on the same page with this. So what Pat Riley came up with was an entire process where he and his staff basically went and looked at every player on their roster. And they went all the way back, not only through those players' professional careers, but also their collegiate and even their high school careers, found all the stats that they could find. And they basically came up with a number that measured each player's effectiveness. So each player had a different level of effectiveness. There were some players whose number was somewhere in the 500 to 600 range. There were other players who, like Magic Johnson, who was the best player on the team. Their effectiveness numbers somewhere in the thousands. And Magic Johnson, by the way, is a guy who, for about 10 years straight, I was looking at this on his Basketball Reference not too long ago. It was almost 10 years straight. Magic Johnson was in the top 5 for MVP in the NBA every year for about 10 consecutive years. And for those of you who don't understand what that means, MVP award in basketball is like the best player in the league. That's basically what the award is. Best player in the league award. Magic Johnson came in the top 5 every year for an entire decade, just to help you understand how great of a player Magic Johnson was. But anyway, as we continue here, Pat Riley came up with this number for everybody on his team. And he challenged the players on his team that I just want you to get 1% better over the course of this upcoming season. So this is the 1986-1987 season. It would end in 1987. The basketball seasons start in the late fall and they end in the following spring or summer, depending on how far you play. The team goes deep into the playoffs, you're playing until June. Your team doesn't go to the playoffs, you're playing until April. So anyway, this is the challenge that Pat Riley laid out for his players. Just make yourself 1% better. Here's the number. And he created a metric by which the players could measure that they were getting better. And he did it all by statistics. They came up with their own statistic of how to measure. So every player knew exactly where they stood, whether they were getting better or worse based on what had happened in the previous games. And over the course of the season, that Laker team played a whole lot better. And guess what happened in 1987? They went to the NBA Finals, and guess what happened? They won. They won the championship in 87. 1988. Guess what happened? In 87, by the way, they played the Celtics again. So the Lakers and Celtics played each other in the NBA Finals every year for 4 years consecutively. These were two dominant teams in the NBA. So the Celtics won 84, Lakers won 85, Celtics won 86. The Lakers missed the finals in 86, so the Lakers didn't make it. But the Celtics won in 86, and then 87, they played again. Lakers against the Celtics, and the Lakers won in 87. 1988, the next year, after Pat Riley created that stat, get 1% better, they won it again in 1988 by beating the Detroit Pistons. Then 1989, guess what? The Lakers made it to the finals again. And this is when Pat Riley coined the phrase three-peat. And it is believed, I believe it's still true to this day, Pat Riley bought and owned the trademark for the phrase three-peat. So if you sold anything with the phrase three-peat on it, you had to pay money to Pat Riley because he owned the phrase three-peat. Because he announced, when the Lakers won the championship in 1987, he announced during the championship celebration, we are going to win another one next year. We are going to three-peat, not repeat, but three-peat by winning another championship next year. He announced that and put pressure on his players that they were going to do it again. And they went all the way to the finals again in 1989, and they lost in the finals to the Detroit Pistons. And then 89, they didn't make the finals. They did make it back to the finals in, let me make sure I got my numbers right here. 88, they won. They won in 87. They won in 88. They lost in 1989 to the Detroit Pistons. That's when Pat Riley announced at the 88 celebration, we're going to win the championship in 89. They made it to the finals, but they lost in 89. Then in 1990, they didn't make the finals. The Portland Trailblazers made it and lost to the Pistons. Pistons won 2 years in a row. And then 1991, guess what? Lakers were back in the finals. And at this point, they were playing against the Chicago Bulls and Mr. Jordan, and they didn't win that one. And Michael Jordan took the throne from that point. The whole point of me sharing all of this is that the Lakers took a failing situation, not making it to the championship round, which was their standard, and they turned that into a springboard for future success by creating a metric that allowed every player to know exactly where they stood and whether they were getting better or worse on a daily basis. And guess what? They won the next 2 championships. They made it to the finals the next 3 years. They made it to the finals 4 out of the next 5 years, and they won the championship twice. That's a standard. That's how winners think. Pat Riley, I think we can agree that guy's a winner. And those of you who don't know much of Pat Riley's story, all of you are familiar. Those of you who are a little bit younger, maybe you're familiar with a guy named LeBron James. So in 2010, LeBron was a free agent who had played his entire career up to that point with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he was deciding which team he was going to join during his free agency. It was clear he pretty much decided he was going to leave Cleveland. And when he went to meet with the Miami Heat, the executive that he met with was a guy by the name of Pat Riley. Now, Pat Riley, what he did, according to legend, what Pat Riley did was when LeBron came to meet him and speak to the Miami front office about possibly playing for the Heat, Pat Riley brought all of his championship rings that he had won over the years with the Lakers and then with the Miami Heat, and he threw all the championship rings on the table as a challenge to LeBron James, because at this point, LeBron had 0 championships, and he was letting LeBron know, well, hey, if you want some of this jewelry, championships, because that's what we play for, then you need to come play for us, because this is where the championships happen. And I think we all know the history. LeBron did decide to come play with the Miami Heat and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, and the Miami Heat did win 2 championships during the 4 years that LeBron was there. They made it to the finals. Guess what? All 4 years. They won the finals twice. So Pat Riley and standards, I think we can agree he had them. Let's move on to point number 12. Today's topic, once again, is how winners think, continuing our ongoing series. Number 12, I expect and visualize success. That's the point. I expect and visualize success. Winners are always seeing themselves as winning in their futures as well as in their present. And what makes a person a winner, ladies and gentlemen, is as well as the way that they think, is not just what they do, and it's not just their results. Let me say that again. What makes a person a winner is the way that they think, not just what they do, and not just their results. Most of the time, we call someone a winner because we can see the outcomes. We can see that they're winning. We can see them first place on the leaderboard. We can see them holding the trophy. We can see what they do, that they perform at a really high level and they do all the winning stuff. But what makes someone a winner is the way that they think, because thoughts lead to actions, actions lead to outcomes. So anytime you see an outcome in a person done consistently, there's a consistent action behind that, and any consistent action behind that, there's a consistent thought process. Guaranteed. No acceptance. So when you see someone winning all the time, what you need to ask about is not what did they win, not what they do, but what is their thought process that led to that winning. That's what you should be asking. Most people don't ask that, but that's what you should be asking. In that same podcast that I just mentioned earlier today that I was recording with Joel, he was asking me, how did I come to the point, the inflection point, because when I first started putting content online, it was mostly targeted towards basketball players and teaching basketball players how to play basketball. How did I transition to this point of talking to non-athletes about personal and professional development? It's a great question, and there's an answer. Answer to the question was, many athletes who were following my basketball material eventually started to ask me questions about who I was and my thought process, and who's the type of person that would create this type of content and do this kind of stuff that I'm doing consistently. And that's when I started talking about mindset. I started talking about discipline and confidence and mental toughness, etc. And this is also not only where basketball players started to say, Dre, this mindset stuff is really valuable. You should talk about this even more. And non-athletes started coming to me in my audience and saying, hey, this mindset stuff is valuable for me, and I don't even play sports. And that's where it started. And the reason why I'm bringing that up to help you all understand is because my outcomes that people could see and the stuff that I was doing, that I was publishing on the internet, were all based on the way that I was thinking. And once I started explaining that, people said, man, this is really valuable. And that's when I knew, hey, I can take just this piece alone, and I can move this into this other space, and I can serve people who are not even playing sports and have no intention of playing sport. What makes a person a winner, folks, again, is their thought process. It starts with the thoughts, things you think consistently. Your mind crafts pictures of the things you think. Your mind thinks in images, not in words. So when you use words in your thought process, those words should be creating images in your mind. So you ever heard someone say they can paint pictures with words? That's what good words do. The best language puts an image in your mind of what's being discussed. Those images become your expectations. And when you expect success, you see success. When you expect success, you see success, meaning everything that you come across, you see it as an opportunity for that thing to help you become and or remain successful. If you think the opposite, you see the opposite. If you expect failure, you see failure. You'll see all the reasons why you're going to fail. Your brain will give you plenty of reasons and supporting evidence as to why you will fail when your expectation is failure. You flip that expectation to success, your brain will start noticing and seeing and reinforcing reasons why you will be successful. And your actions and results will reflect whatever you are consistently thinking. So if you consistently think in failure, you'll fail. You consistently think success, you will succeed. And if you consistently think inconsistently, then you will get inconsistent results. And most people are somewhere in the middle with inconsistent results. Most people don't fail all the time, and many people don't win all the time. Most people are in between. Why? Because your thought process is in between, which means if you can get your thought process just on winning and just on expecting winning, you will win and succeed more often, to the point that failure is not even an option because you don't even see it. It's not possible for you. Is this possible to happen? Yes, it is. Is it real? Yes, it is. When you have an expectation of success, you carry yourself differently than when your expectation is, I don't know what's going to happen, or you expect failure. Can we agree? You ever seen a person about to perform and it looked like, you watch them, it just looked like they already knew they were going to lose? You ever seen that before? Have you ever been that person? All right, you know how that looks. You know what it feels like if you ever been that person. Have you ever seen a person who, looking at them, you just look at them and say, I know they're going to win. I could feel that this person's going to win. I don't even know anything about them. I could just feel that they're going to win just by their energy and the way they're carrying themselves. Have you ever seen that? Did that person actually win? Indeed, they did. Why is this? Because when you expect success, you carry yourself different. People can read off of you when you expect to win, and they can read off of you when you expect to lose. If you're a salesperson, you go into a sales conversation expecting to not close the deal, you will not close that deal. I guarantee you won't close it. Even if the prospect has the money and they want to buy, they won't buy from you because you're giving off the energy of they're not going to buy. All right, your expectation is they're not going to buy. They will meet your expectation. If, on the other hand, you expect to close a deal, a prospect who doesn't even have money to spend will find a way to buy from you. Why? Because you expected to make money. You expected to close the deal. This is not hocus pocus, folks. This is real. Successful people think and talk differently than unsuccessful people. They make different decisions than other people. And they get different outcomes because of it. And it starts with the way you think. In the long run of life, ladies and gentlemen, always remember this, you will get your expectations. In the long run of life, you always get what you expect. So whatever you find yourself getting consistently in your life right now, there is an expectation that has led to that. Now, if you're facing some things right now in your life that are not what you want, then your mindset should be, this is temporary because I'm going to get past and through this because this is not my expectation. Now, if you come to dwell on this situation that you don't want, and you come to accept it as reality and come to accept it as your circumstance, now that becomes your expectation, and now your future is going to keep looking like your present. Good news about all this is that you can change it from where you sit right now without any resources. But the only resource you need is what you're hearing from me right now and getting into our Bulletproof Mindset program inside of Work on Your Game University, which I'll tell you how to get into in one moment. Let's recap today's class, which is the next part of our ongoing series, How Winners Think. Number 10, unwanted circumstances and outcomes are used as springboards for future successes. All right, anything that happens to a winner, they use it as material for their next win, even if the current situation is not what they want. Number 11, while I cannot always control outcomes, I can and do control my process of execution. I told you, Pat Riley, when his team didn't make the finals, because their standard was they made the finals in the championship round every year, he created a process of execution for everyone to execute on. As long as we follow this process, we are best setting ourselves up to actually win, and they won the next two championships and then made it to the finals round the next year and lost. Number 12, I expect and visualize success. Successful people expect success and they visualize success. The words that they say to themselves paint pictures in their minds of an expectation of success. You will always get your expectations in the long run of life. Whatever you expect, you are always getting. Anything you have in your life right now that you're getting consistently, there's an expectation that has led to that. If you like it, keep doing it. If you don't like it, change the way you are seeing things in your own life. And if you want to learn how to get into this mindset as a normal way of being, as your normal modus operandi, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com, become a member of the university, get access to our Bulletproof Mindset framework, and me as your coach, so we can start systematizing and strategizing how you do this in every aspect of your life consistently without fail. That's workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all